Hey guys, welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. On today's show, it is all about the NBA draft. We're going to talk about Zach Edey. We're going to talk about Isaiah Collier, Jacoby Walter, Bub Carrington, Tyler Kolek. I hope I said that right. Tristan Da Silva. A bunch of names on here. Adam McCreary is here with me as always. We've got a special guest, Shamit Dua. Thanks for hopping on, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I've been enjoying the stuff you guys have been putting out the last few weeks, and I'm excited to come chop it up.
All right, before we have the great Zach Edey debate, it looks increasingly likely that JJ Redick is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers' next coach. This has been out there just in NBA circles for weeks now. It seemed kind of like a lock. Shams Charania took it a step further earlier today and said the Lakers are zeroing in on JJ. I think this is just a fascinating move. You know, potentially the last head coach LeBron James has in his career is JJ Redick. JJ Redick, basically never coaching past the youth level, making this jump into a high pressure situation. What is you guys' snap judgments on Coach JJ?
Do you want to go for it?
I'll rip first. Generally, I think I've enjoyed watching his content, watching him diagram plays, hearing him think his way through progressions of plays. I think he's incredibly smart. He's definitely been really fun as a content guy. And he worked really hard as a player and was a pretty smart player. So it feels like the basketball stuff is there, like the mind is there. And if LeBron signs off on you, which clearly he does, that's a great place to start for being the current coach of the Lakers. My only concerns, and look, there's been plenty of guys that have jumped the line before. There are names. Steve Nash was one of them. Jason Kidd, a better one. But Steve Nash was one too. And that didn't go so hot. And that's kind of how I see this going. It's going to be one or the other. And it's hard to believe if you interviewed for a few jobs and you land this one kind of this way. I don't know if the retread, going and being somebody's assistant and grinding it out, if this one doesn't work out, I wonder how much that's a possible future, because that's what Kidd had to do.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that JJ will more than likely be sound on the X's and O's front. And right now, when all teams are, there's still teams playing, but when the Lakers are 0-0, there's enough optimism to be like, hey, JJ's going to come in here. He's good friends with LeBron. He'll be able to vibe with AD and all their other people. He's been a player. He can handle the pressure. He's been the most hated player in Duke and blah, 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 blah. I think, it's easy to sell yourself on that. Just when the going gets tough, and they've had two coaches now that they won a ring with, and Frank Vogel that they fired, another in Darvin Ham that they went to the conference finals with, and don't forget they won the in-season tournament with. That's a banner, baby. And he's been fired. So I just, I'm curious what the standard of success looks like for JJ, sticking as a coach. But on the surface, I would have, I enjoy JJ, the coach, as a concept. I think if he took a job, I don't think he would ever come work for Griff and the Pelicans, but a young up and coming team with a guy, I thought if I'm trying to get into coaching for the first time, that would be kind of the move that I would take, kind of like Steve Kerr did with the Warriors. But hey, there's not many opportunities in the world to co-coach LeBron. So
yeah, if you're looking for comparisons of to this situation, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, those guys make sense. Steve Kerr, a little bit. I mean, Kerr was older. He had a stint as, I believe, the GM of the Suns, and then he was a broadcaster before he got into coaching. I had somebody in the NBA say this to me. One of the reasons Steve Kerr was successful, he got really good assistants. He knew what he didn't know. And he went out and he staffed really well, like Ron Adams, defensive wizard was on his staff. He's continued to change it out, but he's got Kenny Atkinson on his staff right now. He's always had pretty good assistants there. And I think that's going to be something that's important for JJ, no matter how much, potential he has as a coach, get people who have been there and done that, because you're going to need that know-how. I mean, I don't care that he's played like thousands of games as a player. It's just going to be different, and he needs to lean on people with experience. And look, X's and O's, it's a big part of coaching, but relationships with the best players is the most important part of being a head coach in the NBA, I think. And it seems like, he's got a good relationship with LeBron James, and hopefully that can remain strong. I mean, we know LeBron can be petty, catty. I'm really curious if there's any point in this first season where LeBron shades JJ, throws him under the bus a little bit, and how JJ tries to deal with that and works through that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting what happens when they lose 8 of 10. Like, what happens when it's hard to come up with positive things to say. He's not exactly the brightest, cheeriest person when it comes to like how he talks about basketball when it's bad. Like, he's one of those guys that kind of like gets angry about it. It's also interesting, the recent dynamic of like hiring the guy who could be the head coach to be the lead assistant. So I do wonder like who would be willing to take that job, because the recent history is like kind of bad, that it makes the coach like a little insecure and scared of what's going to happen, and that the guy wants his job and maybe runs him off or doesn't work with him very well. So intrigued to see who that name is, but generally like, what is that staff? Because they've definitely put out
James
there.
Borrego?
Yeah, certainly sounds like LA wants it to be. Jovan Buha put that out today, that they're waiting to see the results of the Cleveland interviews, and that is who they want on staff. So that's intriguing, and it makes, I mean, I guess it makes some sense. I think that team could run what he wants to do probably a little bit cleaner than we do. But yeah, it's just interesting because they threw out like Cassell's name and stuff, and like I cannot imagine Cassell switching to be a lead assistant somewhere and not just like waiting for his head coaching job.
JJ should bring in Stan Van Gundy.
Like I mean, obviously that won't work, but like it's someone like that where it's like this guy has a wealth of experience and he did it at a high level, but I'm not concerned that he's ever going to replace me. That Stan just, at this point in his career just wouldn't be a threat at all. I mean, Borrego is like, still young by coaching standards, and I think clearly wants to be a head coach again. It's like if JJ is really wobbly, it's like,
He's literally interviewing for the same job. Like they're competing for that same job.
Yeah, Borrego apparently has a really good relationship with Anthony Davis. That's been, a part of him getting far in this process. I think, Borrego is just a good coach in general, and I think that's a big part of it too. But yeah, that part of it is really interesting. One specific thing about Coach JJ I'm interested in, you have to talk to the media, and you're like the face of the franchise, and like you are the person consistently delivering the messaging for the franchise. And sometimes JJ would have a short fuse, and he's just going to have to answer a lot of dumb, silly day-to-day questions. Like, how does he deal with that part of it? Like Willie Green is like, he's good at that part of it, of not turning anything into a controversy and being patient. Like, and I know that sounds kind of inane, but that stuff can flare up, like how does JJ just deal with being the person who's delivering the messaging for like a highly scrutinized franchise every day?
Well, the one thing I don't think we've touched on is JJ is terminally online. So how is that going to play out? He's going to have to log off. Otherwise, LA Twitter and Lakers media and all of that, like, and look, even national media, because you can't go a day without talking about the Lakers on various networks. It's just like that aspect of it. I'm curious
figuring out how much noise to filter.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Don't stop any of the podcasts. Do all of them. Run the narrative. Give us all the inner workings of the sausage. Give us something we've never seen before. Tell us what happened on Tuesday against the Cavs.
Coach Prime at the NBA level?
Just Draymond, but coach,
Yeah. Coach, there you go. Like, it's basically Coach Draymond, just a little more logical.
I'm really interested to see how this goes. I think JJ Redick is a really smart guy. I think he's going to have to humble himself because coaching is about getting other people to do the stuff, and you can't just go out and do it yourself all the time. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. And hey, someone in New Orleans, I hope it goes poorly this year because I want the Pelicans to have a high pick. I mean, I want the Pelicans to be in Cooper Flag territory.
Hell yeah.
Because of the Lakers, not because of their own doing.
Yes. Key distinction.
Oh God. Oh God. All right. Let's talk about this year's draft. We got a bunch of guys on the list here, mainly perimeter players. Me and Adam did a lot of the bigs on last week's show. We did not really spend much time talking about Zach Edey last week. I think Shamit has strong Zach Edey opinions. I personally, I am a Zach Edey respecter. He's not just a giant with no skill. I think he genuinely does have skill. I think he will help somebody in the NBA. I don't love him for this team, but we're going to lead off with him. Shamit, make the case for Zach Edey as a New Orleans Pelican.
Okay. Look, I'm going to make a larger overall case over on the Substack in the next week or so. But the elevator pitch for Zach Edey, there's a few key points. One, analytically, he's grading out to be a top 3 player in any model that I've seen, public or private. Maybe there's models out there that don't love him, but for the vast majority of models that I've seen him, it's been like Shepard, Edey, and Klingon in some order, with Sarr just kind of like thrown in between there. So one, the math, the numbers, they love him. Two, I think the biggest knock that people like to attribute on Edey, and I don't think it's very well founded, is that he's not really mobile. As a 7-footer, there's only been like 5 7-footers or maybe 6 in the history of the combine that have put up better sprint times than him. Better lane agility times. Like, you guys talked about Deron Holmes, and a lot of draft Twitter loves him as this, quick twitch, a guy that can, like play in space and be athletic. Like, Edey's posting better times than that dude, right? And
is 7 inches taller.
He's 7 inches taller, right? So
and like 50 I think, more pounds.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's really promising. The second thing that's really promising is that in college, he had to play, and he often played like 40 minutes, all the entire game, right? So in the NBA, he's probably going to get in there, play 15, 20, 25, right? This guy was able to stay on the court and produce at a high level while being like the go-to option, while taking a beating every time down and anchoring their defense on the other end. Now, scale that down and compress it to like 15, 20 minutes. He was already a workhorse. I'm excited to see what his motor looks like when, okay, you're not the guy that you have to go, you dump it down to every single time. You're not the guy that has to mind his fouls because he literally cannot get off the court because, Purdue's backup bigs are nowhere near as good as him. I'm excited to see what that looks like. He does have a great motor. And, finally, like, I think his offensive skill is being quite underrated. He was one of the most efficient players in college basketball. No one had an answer for him. Even Klingon didn't have a good answer for him. I think a lot of people like hyped up, like, Klingon did have a good stretch in the national championship, but like Edey came out that game like barbecuing him. And then, before, things settled down. And I think a lot of Purdue's issues were mostly related to their perimeter rather than Edey himself. And what do you have, like 40 and 17 or whatever, absurd game. So his offensive skill is being underrated. And in Purdue, the best offensive option was to just dump it down to him in the post and just do everything from there. Like their guys shot really well. They kind of like recruited with that kind of mentality. Hey, Edey's our centerpiece. We got to have guys that can play off of that. In the NBA, I still think there's like a lot of usage diversity left for him. He's not going to be the guy where you just dump it down, get it out of the way, and build the whole system around. Maybe there's like a 2% chance that he gets to like that level of dominance. I don't think it's very high. 2 might be even higher, but like I think right out the gate as a bench guy, he's going to be a possession monster. He's going to terminate possessions on the defensive end as one of the best rebounders in the league. He's going to walk in as one of the best rebounders, and he's going to get you extra possessions on the offensive end as an offensive rebounder. And I think the most important thing that he does is he forces teams to play big. And if you are the New Orleans Pelicans, my pet theory with Zion has always been that it's not him that needs the stretch five. It's the perimeter guys. It's Brandon that needs the stretch five when Zion's out there. Zion functions just fine when he played with Steven Adams. He functions just fine when, it's JV. It's when you put in that trio of Zion, Brandon, and a non-shooting big, things get a little murky because, you don't have enough geometry on the court for all those guys to operate in. Now, look, you guys have already talked about this. I think the kind of big question here is what the Pelicans are going to do with Brandon in the event that Brandon's not on the team and you have a Trey Murphy, a really good shooter in that spot. I think Zion and Edey fit really well because what Edey does is you can no longer put a big on Herb Jones. You can't go park Chet in the corner. You can't go park Brook Lopez, on Herb. You can't put Jaren Jackson on Herb, which a lot of teams have done historically. I think with Edey, he is going to murder you on the offensive glass and just as an offensive player in ways that like they tried to with JV that I don't think JV was quite mobile enough at this stage of his career to like really, really take advantage of. But I think with Edey, it's going to be like abundantly clear. Like he's going to put his arms up and Zion will call a pick and roll with Edey. And all of a sudden, if you don't have a big on one of those two players, you're cooked. And so if you're forced to play a big as an opposing team and forced to play bigger than you like, I just think the Pelicans are going to be better at it than just about anyone except for the Nuggets.
So I'm going to give this as much serious conversation as humanly possible. I struggle with it. Not that I have no doubts whatsoever. I don't have any argument for Edey not doing a lot or all of what he did in college at the NBA level to NBA guys. Like I know a lot of people will have that conversation and say names like Luka Garza and stuff like that. This is not that. It's not Taco Fall. It's not that. He is decisive. His moves are great. He can do that to anybody. My questions have nothing to do really with like what his output could be. It's what the cost is on the floor and to your structure and like what team can absorb that and wants to be that. Because while he has moved like faster than 7-footers, most 7-footers aren't good, like haven't been good. And we've also moved into a style of basketball now. Like we're watching this happen to Andre Drummond still. Andre Drummond got drafted when we still valued a post big that rebounded a ton and has now kind of turned into a 12 to 15 minute guy that defends and gets rebounds, but never really gets a bigger role than that until your center dies. And then the Bulls lost most of those games, even when he did do 22 and 15 and 2 blocks, 2 steals. So I wonder, like all of my questions are more about that. Do you feel like there's a skill that we have like has only flashed at the college level that you feel like is potentially better than that or will be better than that? Do you think he even needs that? Or are you so unconcerned? Because like my fears are all, yes, you make them play big, but you're going to be, and you should probably want to be like one of the slowest teams in the league. Like you should probably plan for that. Should you not?
I don't think so because look, I think he's going to get every single rebound and he's going to outlet it to the guard, to Zion, to whoever, and then it's off to the races, right? I don't think they need to be slow. I think there's been teams, I mean, like historically, like Milwaukee's played really fast and Brook is just not a fast dude. I think in the past, like OKC's had some of the best transition outputs across many years when Adams was there. So I think that like ending those possessions lets you play a lot faster than, just like the concept of Edey might allow you to think. And I think like, your point about Drummond, honestly, like I think out the gate, like that's a really cool role for him. Just like 15, 20 minutes,
Agree.
go be that guy. I think, with against bad teams, you can dump it down to him. And he, you can run the offense through him, and against good ones, you just let him. Hey, you dominate the glass on both ends. Just be relentless on the glass. And I think with Drummond, there were a few things. I think there was most notably, I think there were a lot of motor issues just the general desire to like play hard at all times. I just don't think that's a question with Edey. Like I think Edey is going to like, this is a dude who's 7'5", who's like laying out on the court for loose balls like that. Like I think that level of drive and competitiveness is going to be pretty valuable. And I think when you ask about like what skill, like maybe has he flashed or not flashed, I don't know. I don't really buy the whole him hitting threes at the combine. You know, like I don't really care for that kind of stuff. I do think that his touch is really, really good for what he is. You know, he's a good free throw shooter. He can hit a jump hook from almost the free throw line. I think there's a level of like he can be a pick and pop guy in the mid range area, or a guy that can, like, if you get him to it in the short roll, like he can punish you from 12, 15 out. He can punish you from the baseline. Conceptually, I think it's everything they wanted JV to be this year. They just didn't have a guy that could push JV to the bench reliably as a starter. But I think, you know, can you get a bigger, more mobile and younger version of JV? I mean, I think that's a winning player, like right out the gate. And if he gives you anything more in terms of like, you know, is if he has any level of Brook Lopez on defense in him, like, is he a cleansing monster? Is he going to, like, you know, like no 3-second violations ever? He's just going to keep resetting by tagging all those people, put him in deep drop. Is he, you know, if there's any level of stretchability in him, then like this is a player that you pay a lot of money for. But even if there's not, I think the rebounding and the size are just going to make him playable right out the gate. And to me, a lot of these bigs, I think a lot of bigs offensively and defensively get misevaluated because of their perimeter. You know, they'll be like, oh, like this guy can't guard in space, this guy can't do that. Well, you know, no one's talking about the guard that died on the screen that allowed the big to get cooked, right? We've seen the defensive player of the year in Rudy get deep fried by really talented perimeter players. And it's more of a product of who is on like the second person in the ball screen game than it is a product of Rudy Gobert, in my opinion. And so I think similarly with Edey, I think he's going to be just fine in the vast majority of scenarios. There's going to be scenarios that are tricky to navigate where he has to come up to the level of screen. He has to go chase some shooters out there. I just don't know if there's many bigs that are truly equipped to handle like that level of coverage if the perimeter isn't right. So like, you know, you talk about guys like Bam and Anthony Davis. Yeah, you might, you know, be able to create a switch off of some of those, but I don't know if that's really sustainable. Like I've seen those guys also get cooked by the best perimeter players.
So let's just say Edey is there at 21 and he somehow doesn't get snapped up before the Pelicans make a pick and you have the option to take him. Is Edey going to be okay if the Pelicans say we're literally never going to feed you the ball in post-ups? Like the only time we're ever going to post you up is when Zion is off the floor. And that'll happen, I guess. But is he accepting of that? A guy who, you know, was an absolute monster in college, who had 38 points or whatever in the national championship game, a guy who's accomplished as much as he has. Will he be okay with that, of his role, you know, being kind of limited and narrow on the offensive end next to Zion?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think like obviously at some level they're all competitors and they want more and more and more and more. But I think like given his public interviews, I think he has a really good understanding that the system is not going to be based around him in any capacity. He's going to have to prove that he belongs out there. Like he's going to have to prove that he can defend. I think that is the biggest thing. Can he defend at an adequate enough level to where coaches trust him? Because if coaches don't trust him, that's it. That's his career. He's never going to get on the court. He's going to be Billy Hernangomez, right? Like that's the outcome. But can he defend at an adequate enough level? Because once that happens, because he's so large, he's just going to generate offensive opportunities that I think that end of the floor will largely take care of itself. And over time, if he continues to prove that he can hold up defensively, I do think teams will start developing more and more stuff for him offensively. But, you know, like 7'5" guys, like they just make stuff happen. Those big men just make stuff happen. And I think like, sure, like first few years, he might be a predominantly, I'm going to get the offensive rebound and just go back up with it type of guy. Maybe I get 2 or 3, you know, post touches a game. Maybe that's it. And if it works out, he earns more. But I'm curious to see what he looks like in pick and roll situations. I think he's an incredible screener. I think where he can get in trouble, I think we've talked a lot about his positives. I think where he can get in trouble is if you are building a very post-up heavy offense around him, is that the very best athletes in the NBA can force him into making a lot of decisions. And I think he's a capable decision maker. He's not Jokic. He's not Sabonis. He's not someone. I mean, like we saw it with JV. JV can make some of those passes, but when the team starts swarming him, he'll cough up the ball, right? For relative to his usage, Edey had a really low turnover rate. I think that's promising. But like all of these post up guys, it's kind of like why teams have gone away from the post up is like you can force a lot of turnovers out of them. So I think teams have to be more creative than just to dump it down there. I think you got to get them on the move, and stopping a 7-5 guy on the move is going to be impossible for anybody.
Should the Thunder just take him at 12? I mean, they could, if they needed to go supersized, they could, but they could just bring him off the bench and preserve their 5-out stuff. Like Adam, how do you like the fit of him with the Thunder as a big? They could, I guess throw in there in the starting lineup when they needed to, but it's just an option.
It doesn't. I know some people have mocked him there, and I think if they're so flexible with like how much positional size and athleticism they have, that they're like one of the weird teams that can afford an experiment and not really suffer for it. But it doesn't feel like their style at all, and I think the 5-out stuff and the growth of those guys and the positional athleticism and size, like I know he has some of that, but I think there's a type of basketball that they're trying to grow there and keep leaning into. And they have not shown a willingness, and I don't think they're going to show a willingness to buy into things that take away from that idea. Like people are trying to give them Claxton and Jared Allen and stuff like that. Like everybody wants to give them a center. That is not what they're going to do. They're going to keep trying to find like maybe either their own version of Ben Wallace or something like it, like they're going to try to find a dude that can do more than just like what people envision a center to be. So the Edey thing feels a little weird for them because it's such a throw away from what they are and what they're going to be that I don't think Edey would progress very much there. I think he would kind of be like, I don't know, like a character actor, like a typecast there. The teams that are interesting for me are like the ones right after us, like New York, like teams that I know Shamit said he doesn't believe that you need to play slow. I think there are teams that have a lot of shooting talent and creation that already play relatively slow that can absorb him as a backup big immediately with no issue, and also have like all the room in the world to experiment and see if it ever becomes anything else without the risk. And it feels like the Knicks, the Suns, I don't think they're going to end up making that pick, but the Suns are intriguing. Like KD and Booker and that guy, like that's intriguing to me. The Heat are kind of a mess right now, but I feel like they're one that could make sense. Boston could definitely make sense. Like Luke Cornett's not doing anything for me. So those are the teams that intrigue me more because there's not, it doesn't feel like there's as much push-pull against his style of play coming in there and potentially becoming more than it's going to be walking in.
I think you're absolutely right about OKC. I think one thing Presti has been pretty careful about is I think in the lottery, he's not a believer of drafting for fit, and he's not a believer in like these upperclassmen type players. Now, granted, Edey might be the best player available at 12. I certainly personally value him higher than 12 on, like when I start making lists. And I know, obviously, we talked about the analytics modeling him a lot higher. So maybe he gets to 12 and Presti just like, he's the best player available. We're just going to take him.
Edey, to be clear, is like an anti-fit with the Thunder. Like,
yeah.
I mean, their starting center is a 5-out guy with Chet Holmgren, and their backup center is Jalen Williams, another 5-out guy. It would be a conscious choice to say, we want to at least be able to deploy lineups where we have a colossus in the middle and we go away from this style.
And I think they can probably tell themselves, hey, we'd rather take a swing there, and then we can probably, like, if we wanted to, we could sign JV to play the same role. Like they have avenues to dudes that can do the same thing that are probably more of a sure thing at this moment. 16 in Philadelphia intrigues me. That allows them to play enormous all 48 minutes. If he is a guy that can end up starting, Embiid misses 30 games a year, you throw him out there and don't really have to change up much of your offensive system. That one is pretty interesting. Obviously, Daryl Morey, big numbers fan. He was the guy that had Yao. That one seems pretty interesting to me. Would not be surprised to see that.
They're another one where I really wonder if they're going to make that pick. Like, we need to see what happens with, like, who are they going to sign, because they clearly like set this up immaculately to get one of these expensive guys to add to that group. And how does that shake out? Like, do they end up needing to make the pick because they need somebody on the roster at a controlled number, or do they need a cheaper roster hold than that, and it's got to go to somebody else?
People are really watching the Paul George thing in the NBA right now. I mean, people are like, are we sure he's going to be a Clipper next year? I'm really interested to see if he ends up in Philadelphia.
I think the Clippers have no choice but to max him. Sorry.
Any last thoughts on Edey before we go to some of these perimeter players?
Sorry,
draft him. Trade up to get him. You won't regret it.
Yeah,
be the biggest team.
I'm completely the opposite. I don't want to be the team that makes this bet. Just because of everything else that's out there. Like, I understand the premise, but like what you're describing to me is like a guy you take at the end of the first round or a second round. Like, now
this
granted, I know this draft sucks. I've watched these guys play. There's a lot of bad basketball. I didn't like. I texted Christian the other day. I'm like, man, I'm watching all these guards. Like, oh God, it's so bad. It's weird because everybody described it as like the starting shallow. Like, you're starting at like the 10th pick in terms of talent. The back end's not great either. Like, once you get to like 18 to 20, it's kind of all the same slush of like a guy that has either one athletic trait or one skill, and I don't know what else, and I'm just going to take whoever fits the best. So yeah, I get the Edey premise on that. Like, on bad class, take a swing, you're willing to do the things. I just feel a lot more. I feel like it's got to be more dramatic than you just introduce him into what you run today and it fits better than I think. I think you do. If you want any of the upper level outcomes, I feel like you got to like kind of go all in and turn it back to the 90s and go punch Wembanyama and Chet in the face a little bit and like decide to want to be that early. Like, I kind of get that, like getting out ahead of all of the Claxtons and Chets and Miles Turners and everything, and saying like, I'm bigger and tougher than you. I'm gonna go through you.
Think how much 4-5 pick and roll the Pelicans ran this past year, and if they got Zach, like, think about Willie Green spamming the 4-5 pick and roll with Zach Edey. I feel like you would try to go to a lot. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it, honestly. But
where is he setting the pick though? 5 feet away from the basket or 12?
He can set it wherever he wanted to. He can set it from 25 feet away from the basket. I think Zion's going to be all right with that. Like, I think we've seen different versions of Zion. Like, the one I harken back to a lot is last year, not this year, like last year, he kicked Philly's ass with Billy Hernangomez as like his role man. And he did similar to the Nuggets. And they just ran middle screen and roll. And it wasn't a shallow screen and roll. It was just pretty standard above the 3-point line. Zion just went down the middle every single time and got to his left-hand layup and just completely, like, Embiid could do nothing about it.
Yeah. We know he can do that. It's just,
should you make him when his body always breaks? Like, do you want to fight that world?
Look, in the playoffs, I think that action becomes difficult to guard, because then you could flip it and then be like, cool, we're just going to have a guy like Edey Gortat it and just going to just seal the big out of the play. Zion doesn't need a screen to beat his person. I think a lot of times Pels specifically went away from bringing a guy to screen for Zion just so they don't put 2 on the ball and blitz him or something like that. And look, I don't think there's a single guy in the league that can. I think there's guys that can slide with Zion. I just think he physically moves them. So I just don't think he needs a screen. And if a guy like Edey's just carving out space and cleaning up any of these bad layups that like, I just think in the playoffs, that is that could be a sustainable offense, and you might live at the free throw line with those two guys, and it just be, I also just like, I'm trying to solve the problem of you can't put a big on Herb, and I think you get a guy like Jared Allen, maybe that problem gets solved because he's such a good lob threat, but like you get a guy like Onyeka or anybody else that's like not as good as Jared Allen, they're going to put their big on Herb, and your spacing is going to be mucked up. And as good as Herb is shot, the Pelicans are simply not going to be willing to play through Herb as a 3-point shooter and let him jack up 9-10 attempts a game. And Herb's not going to be willing to do that. And I just think it's going to compromise their whole offense.
Yeah, but what if it's Garland and Allen?
Sounds like a time for.
I think we're all on board with the Pelicans getting a dynamic like lead guard in here. All right, let's move on. Some of these perimeter guys. Isaiah Collier, a guy who was a number 1 player in his high school class, went to USC. Kind of an underwhelming season. To your point earlier about this is just not a great draft class. I mean, Collier, 6'3", thick boy lead guard, gets by people off the dribble, some creative finishes inside, but also shooting, not very impressive, 68% at the line. I don't know. It's just, he gets by people off the dribble and there's some nice finishes at the rim. I guess there's some okay defensive stuff in there. If he's going to go all the way to 21, maybe you think about it. Where do you come down on Collier, Shamit?
Yeah, so I think, just what I said earlier, this is a draft where you have to kind of take swings at like outlier level tools, outlier level activity, things that are going to translate in the league. And I think Collier is one of maybe 3 guys in this class that can project to be a creator if everything works out for him. And there's a lot that needs to work out for him to get there, but he's a guy that has undeniable rim. I think he's the best rim pressure guy in the entire class. There's an argument for Topic being up there, but I think it's Collier. He gets to the free throw line like a maniac. Again, I think one thing the playoffs has really taught me is that strength is so important. Size doesn't mean anything if you're not strong. And it's these strong guards, it's these strong wings. It's just strength in general. Strength-based creation is such a big asset in the playoffs. So you're betting on him getting his shot down because he can already get to the rim. If you have a guy like Fred Vincent at 21, I don't think there's a better swing. Not to mention he does play a position of need, which I don't really care for in my personal philosophy, but I know, there's people that are split on that. And hey, if you're a guy that likes drafting for fit, he's a point guard, So I like him. I think he's really, really good value at 21. I think he's probably going to go top 14 for a lot of the same reasons that I mentioned. It's just one of those things where like all these teams are going to look at the guys in this draft and be like, well, you know what? This is a guy that can get to the rim. We can do something with that.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar place. You just watch him drive. And for one, like, you do yourself a favor and don't obsess over watching his games before the injury. Like, watch what happened in February and March. That was more like the guy that you expected to see in the beginning of the year. And USC was an absolute dumpster fire mess. Like, the coach was losing the job a month in. He had 2 projected like primary rotation starters that had major health concerns and didn't play. His center was inexplicably way worse than anyone expected. Like, it was a complete mess. He looked a lot better when he came back from the injury. And the thing that you see when you watch him play is like, he's an absolute, I love these 2 words. He's a brick shit house. And his first step with ball in hand is so quick that like, you can't both. He causes problems for both types of guys. He can either go through you if you're small or around you if you're too big. And he's not exactly like, he's not this giant bouncy athlete, but he's a really good finisher around the rim. So, you like to see that. Like, he has figured out a way to make success at the rim happen against bigger competition already. He has found various ways to finish on both sides with both hands. So, and he does have some dunks. It's not, he's not going to be jumping out of the house or anything like that, but he does have it. So when you're looking at this draft and like, especially Like there's a lot of like strange players in this draft. There's basically like this pile of 6'10" dudes who aren't centers, who are wings, but aren't wings. It's strange. And there's a lot of tiny guards. And like for my money, we're going to talk about two of the guys that I think Reed Shepherd, while not being a pure guard, is probably the best guard in the draft. Like he probably is. Topic would be my second guy because I just don't want to be stupid about Europeans that can pass like that anymore. I don't want to be dumb when I can see it over and over and over again. I'll worry about the athleticism when one of them shows me they're too slow. But after that, the Dillinghams and everything after that, and these other guards like Jalen Tyson and stuff like that, when we get into those, like Collier is like the one that I see being an NBA guard. Like he looks like he's going to be an NBA guard. When you watch him play, he looks like he does something that can happen on an NBA floor.
Agreed. Yeah. It's just kind of, when you see it, and to you guys' point, it's that slashing ability, the ability to just consistently get past his guy, get to the rim, finish with either hand. Like that does look like a projectable NBA skill for him. I mean, what he takes 6 free throws a game, something like that. I mean, he does get to the line. I think there's some nice playmaking stuff with him. I mean, if he's there at 21, it's just like, look, this guy has talent. He clearly has some flaws. Do it, like push the button and do it. I mean, Shamit, you said you think he's going to go in the top 14. I mean, not that this is my gospel or anything, but like Gavoni had him going at 21 in his last mock. I don't know. I've seen him a little bit lower in some of these mocks, and I don't know how much that means at this still kind of early stage at the process, like 3 weeks out.
Yeah, I mean, I have some Gavoni mock takes, which are probably best saved for after the pod. But I will say I do, just chattering with people that I've had the pleasure of chatting with. I think a lot of folks are going to arrive at a similar conclusion to where it's just like there's not many good upside bets. Kind of going for these ambiguous or amorphous wings is going to get tiring. I think some team is just going to be like, yep, no, like this guy can be somebody. I just think at the guard position, and obviously it's become true for almost every single position now, but at the guards position specifically, the one thing you need to be able to do is shoot. Like a non-shooting guard just doesn't work in this league anymore. And the way it ends up working is if you live at the free throw line. And so that's kind of the thing with Collier is like he lives at the free throw line. There's any semblance of him becoming a shooter. Like Ant wasn't projected as a great shooter coming in. He's obviously worked a lot at it and he takes a lot of them. And I think attempting a lot also matters because it changes the coverages on you and you can tap into variance on any given night. If you get hot, it's just like you become unguardable. So like these guys like Luka, Fox, Ant, not known to be shooters, really, really good rim pressure guys. They take a ton of off the dribble threes. And frankly, that's just where the game is going. And I think that's what Collier is going to have to do at the next level as well.
All right, let's go to Jacoby Walter, one and done kid from Baylor, McKinney, Texas. Shout out McKinney, Texas, DFW suburbs. 6'4" with a 6'10" wingspan. Not that the 3-point percentage was like incredible or anything, but he's going to get drafted in the first round just because his shot looks good. And there are some moments where he does look impressive, standing still, but especially off of movement. Like there are those flashes of movement shooting with him. And, he's got the body of an NBA wing, I think. Do you guys like Walter? Where do you guys come down on him?
I'll rip first. I think he's one of the ones in the mocks that bugs me the most because of like there's from like 10 to 16 in a lot of mocks. There's just kind of some names peppered in there that at the end of the day, if you're watching them play, I don't know how I could look at any of the teams that's picking there and say, yeah, they take this over that. And he's like the epitome of that for me. He keeps getting mocked in like the kind of the 13 to 17 range. And it's really hard for me to see because everything other than the shot seems like not a good basketball player. And it like the passing create, like, is he going to be a creating guard? No. So he's going to be a wing, but he's going to be a standstill wing. Is he an incredible defender? I have a lot of issues with him, and it's always, I get into comparing him to like the other group of people that's right there. And I just don't think a lot of the mocks have things figured out yet in that area. I don't think he's very good at basketball. I think he can shoot though, and I think he's actually a better shooter. I think he's got a better jumper than what his numbers say he does. I think like it is really good. What that's going to end up meaning because of all the other stuff is my big question mark.
Yeah, so you kind of believe in literally the most important skill, but you still hate him.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. To me, he's one of these guys that like his second team is probably going to love him, or maybe his third team, right? Like I kind of look at him like KCP a little bit, where like KCP came in the league. He was kind of billed as like this go-to scorer a little bit in Detroit, and like that didn't end up working out. He wanted a max contract, and there's the whole thing. Ended up on the Lakers, and
was he a Stan Van Gundy draft pick, by the way, in Detroit?
I feel like it was.
I'll double check. Sorry.
Yeah. But you know, like he's now developed into this guy that can hit threes reliably on the move and is billed as a really good defender, and that's kind of the sell with Jacoby Walter. Is he the best movement shooter in this class? I think there's an argument to be made for that, even though the percentages are just not there. It also kind of shows you with this class, like, man, like if he's the best movement shooter, like what's going on? But yeah, I mean, like, look, he's got like decent positional size. He'll be able to guard two positions decently well. I think scale up to some three positions. He can attack a closeout decently well. I don't think he's a good playmaker. I think there's a very defined role for him to play, which is go guard and go shoot threes. And him not being like 6'2" helps him compared to like, a guy like Bronny James, who is kind of playing the same role. But yeah, I think I don't love him. I think he's a guy I'd be interested in as like a second draft guy. I wouldn't be surprised. Like he figures it out just on a different team. Like Nesmith kind of like became the same thing. Like Nesmith was this like excellent shooter, and he was an incredible offensive threat at Vanderbilt. Didn't really do any of that in the NBA, and now has kind of reinvented himself as like a rugged 3-and-D type of wing. I would not be surprised if that ends up happening with Jacoby Walter.
Yeah, Nesmith, I mean, really those first 2 years were next to nothing, and it's, he's at the end of his rookie contract now, and he's something. And
yeah,
that's the hard part about this. It's like, you're not only are you trying to project like what will this guy look like in 5 years, but it's like, well, can he do anything for us right now? And that's, like Derek Lively. A lot of people are like, well, it's going to take Derek Lively some time. And it turns out, no, Derek Lively is just good immediately. And I like Derek Lively a lot. I just don't know how I don't know. That's the hard part of it.
It would be great to start by putting him next to Luka. That's probably what helped Derek Lively the most. Like it's awesome. He had a perfect fit. Like him and Cason Wallace are like epitomes of perfect fit, perfect role, perfect situation. And it got to scale up over the year without immense pressure. Like when there was about to be pressure, they made the deal with the Hornets and alleviated what pressure there might be by like taking some of the burden off. Those were great, but yeah, I'm a credit Luka a little bit with making the job easier.
Yeah, it does help to have like one of the most skilled lead guards of all time.
Can I have one? I want one.
Take one.
There aren't any.
Yeah.
We can talk about somebody else who might be good. That's called the transition. What about Bub Carrington? Because if we got a guy in this list of people, this is my guy. So you always ask me like which one. All right, do we like all the same people and hate all the same people?
You don't like Edey, so definitely not.
Okay, well that's the one we disagree on, and I don't not like him. I want there to be some like attainable ceiling path, and that's the part I struggle with. I think he's gonna. Sure. I think 15-minute player is a no doubter. Yeah. I think I disagree on how much you sacrifice to be able to play that, and I don't really love the Drummond stuff. because I think it just got devalued to a degree
man.
where
I
We
thought
don't need to
Drummond
go
was
back
so
into the
good.
Zach Edey
Sorry,
stuff. We spent
sorry,
20
sorry.
minutes on it. Tell me about Bub Carrington.
Bub Carrington. Dude. So if there's anything that was fun in watching all of the bad basketball, trying to watch like the back half of like people that would be around our pick, Bub Carrington's great. Like Bub Carrington, he's legitimate juice, real dribble, actual lead guard. Like if there's anybody who reminds you of the stuff you see in Garland and Trae Young and all those things, like those guys that are running around, taking pull-up threes in your face, taking pull-ups from a bunch of different angles and stuff. He doesn't really have as much of the like ISO self-creation stuff. He runs a lot off of picks and things like that. And he can also do that off ball, but the dude can really, really, really score from a jumper. And his passing is great. It's creative. He just really, really looks like the NBA guard that you expect. And I have no idea why every mock has him. I guess they're starting to move him up now, but I don't know how he's been in the 20s for people or at the end of the first round for people. And I think he's one of the people, like, I don't think he's going to be there for the Pelicans. He's one of those ones that I'm like convinced, like him and Collier. I just think there's not a lot of guards. They both have something real. Thus they're going to be gone. But God, if I can get him out of here, I'd take him over Collier, honestly.
Yeah, he's the second youngest player in the draft, I believe.
Turns 19 in July.
And youngest domestic player.
Yeah, youngest domestic player. Obviously, a lot of untapped upside. There is, like you said, real pull-up juice there. Went to work in the mid-range a really good amount in college. Kind of honestly, I know you mentioned like Trae and Garland. I don't think he has quite like the Jitterbug style qualities of those guys.
Yeah.
He reminds me of D'Lo a little bit, and in the good qualities of D'Lo. I think we can go down the route of
he passes
he's bigger than a Trae or a Garland, and I'm not saying that's what he's going to be or anything like that. He's a bigger guard than that.
Really, really smooth. I think he is deliberate about how he gets to spots. Honestly, I see a little bit of like Chris Middleton in that regard, just like the way he operates in that mid-range area. Just again, that's a real translatable skill. And in this draft, there just are not many dudes with those kind of qualities. And in the NBA, if you hit on a guard that has real pull-up scoring juice, that's the jackpot, and so even if he ends up being a six-man type of guy where he just gets loose for, 25, 30 minutes a game off the bench for somebody, I do think like he views himself as a point guard. I do think there's lead guard qualities in him. I would be excited to see like how that pans out for him. What really impressed me was his willingness to play off the ball. And I think that's just so important these days I just think there's a lot of guys who have been the dude their whole life and they just don't really know how to function next to other better players. And I don't see that with him. I think, right out the gate, he'll be able to be put in inverted screen and rolls. I think he'll be able to pick and pop out of those or, attack closeouts when he gets kicked out too. I think he has, obviously as a shooter, he'll be able to spot up and stuff, but I think he has real off ball ability. I think he sprints around screens to get open to spots, cuts very intuitively. So that kind of stuff always excites me in players, especially when looking at the prospect of playing with Z, who is going to command a lot of touches. I'm not saying Z should be a heliocentric guy, but look, the goal is to win big in the playoffs. It ends up becoming about the dude, and Zion's the dude on this team at this moment, and he's going to have a lot of those touches. So guys that can, multiply, what you guys say, force multiply his specific skill set and not need the ball as much, but still have, on ball juice. Those are really good fits.
Yeah. I mean, as you guys highlighted, the pull-up shooting is the critical skill with Carrington. Like he clearly just has that when you watch it on the tape, and a lot of his assists are created out of that too. It's defenders, him drawing defenders in because they're like, oh gosh, this guy can hit this really tough contested jumper, and Carrington like making nice plays out of that. I like him a lot as a prospect. The one of the things that does concern me as a little bit is the blocks and steals numbers are extremely low. Just like no defensive playmaking whatsoever. That does give me like a little bit of pause, but I like him. 6'4", like pretty big body. Like he's still gonna grow. He's still a kid. He's got a skill that makes me believe in him a little bit. I'm a fan. I wouldn't be mad at all if that's what they came away with at 21.
Yeah, he weighed in at like right around 200, and I think if you want to go find any faith in his defense, watch like the last 10 games he played. The start of the year wasn't so great, but there are games where you're like, yeah, he's going to be able to defend a couple positions. He's going to be fine. So judging by the numbers, if I looked at his assist numbers, I would think he couldn't pass either. And he makes some wild passes sometimes out of that jumper stuff, like you were talking about. I think the one thing we need to hit, like, just so that we make it clear, he's not a miracle, like drop from heaven. He does not really, like, to Shamit's point about Collier being the best rim pressure guy. He does not apply pressure to the rim. Like, the jumper is what he goes to. And some part of that is like he was really skinny coming out of high school, and that has always been his game. So it's like he runs into contact no problem, and takes jumpers out of it. So the question is like, will he go to the rim? Like, does he not want to? I think some of it's verticality. I think some of it's size. But it is a little bit of an issue that he won't go the rest of the way sometimes on the play calls for it.
Yeah, I think that's where like my D'Lo comp comes in. Like, I just think that's who D'Lo is as an NBA player. Like, good jump shooter, can make plays, play on and off the ball. Just doesn't get to the rim as much as you'd like.
All right, moving down our list of perimeter guys. This is the last perimeter guy we've got in the list. Tyler Kolek, kid from Marquette, who is a 4-year college player. 6'1" without shoes. He's small. He's 23 years old. He is really good at basketball. I mean, a guy, almost 8 assists per game, great playmaker, lefty. Like if he gets downhill with the left hand, he was usually finishing with like these scoop shots, all these funky angles, can shoot the ball. He's really good. It's just, he's tiny and he's pretty old.
This is this one. I have one take on this, and then I'll let Shamit rip. For all the people thirsting after Tyus Jones, just draft this guy. That's it. That's all I have to say. If you want Tyus Jones, I would rather this version. Like, I don't think you go and spend assets and spend money on guys like this, but if you can draft one, like, hey, I'm cool with having just like a great backup point guard. That's fine. I think that's probably what he's gonna be. Like, he's gonna be like probably better shooter TJ McConnelly. And that's sounds cool. Like, compared to the other stuff we talked about, we're not talking about any of the dumpster fire, like so raw, so far away, they're scary to take people. But there are a lot of those people like in the near future in this realm. This guy's a good basketball player. He's gonna be good. There are just limits to what it's gonna be. So like, this is a take the best basketball player. Oh yeah, he's a point guard too. Just, you just kind of know what you're getting and what the ceiling is.
Yeah, he might be the best pick and roll player in the class. Didn't take a ton of threes in college, but what's super promising is he had 3 years over 80% from the free throw line, which is historically been a good indicator of shooting, translating, and touch.
85% from the line his senior year, just nails.
Yeah, and so can he be a guy in the NBA that gets comfortable shooting a lot more threes than he took in college? That'll be interesting. I think with guys that you've mentioned in terms of Tyus and McConnell, you don't need to be that guy. Those guys aren't high volume threes. McConnell, these last playoff series, was straight up turning down wide open shots, get into his spots as well. So yeah, look, I think he would be a guy where you've kind of gone down your list and concluded there's just no better players, no better fits. Just going to take this guy. This makes sense. I just have a feeling there's going to be some decent prospects available at 21 that I would rather choose over him. Especially at the big man spot. But there might not be a better guard available at 21.
When I was looking through the combine stuff of like height and vertical leap, Tyler and Bronny James were very close on the measurement of height without shoes, just to give you an idea of how small Bronny James is. I saw that and I was like, oh, Bronny James is this short.
And the point I made, I'll get out of your way real quick. This is to the one point I made about Bronny and like why he shouldn't be in this draft is like he needs to go get the handle and the passing that Kolek has. Like he needs that. And
not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. This happen. Yeah,
this is just so crazy. But like he should at that size want to be this, and it's not there.
Well, and so like kind of push back on Kolek. Like, I think you have to ask yourself how much better than Jose is he going to be for this team, and what is Jose going to cost you relative to what Kolek is going to cost you? Because if
Jose costs you $1.8 million next year.
Yeah, he costs you 1.8, which is cheaper than the cap hold at 21. And I don't know what his future contract looks like and whatnot, but I think there's a real conversation like, hey, look, if Kolek's not getting any minutes next year and Jose's going to get another deal with you, that's essentially a waste of a pick because those guys can't play together. But if you're not sold on Jose and you're like 1.8, great. Following year, you're just not going to re-up. Then you're like, cool, he can step into the Jose role and just kind of take it from there. So that's where like, if you've evaluated this is the best player available, I would not make roster decisions based off the fact Jose Alvarado is there. I would just draft him. But
you just convinced me not to want anything to do with Kolek by just hypothesizing that there would be a world where they would be drafting to replace Jose, because that is not a business you should be in.
Right.
That's not a great business to be in, especially at this pick. And I agree with you that the tough part is going to be like, how do those mid-teens shake out and what ends up falling to 21? Like what is there? But yeah, you just talked me off of Kolek with that one. Cause I'm like, oh wow, wait. Yeah, no, that makes sense. CJ is also still here. That's very tiny.
Dyson
how does he get on the floor?
On ball reps, like it's weird. I don't think that Dyson. I think all of these guards can play with Dyson. I think Dyson's an amplifier, and he's just not going to be like the heavy on ball guy that he probably wants to be. You just have to be able to score a lot better than he does.
I just want him to be more confident, more aggressive. Like go to the rim when you get there, take the shot.
Yeah, we need to like upload the Matrix software of just baseline level of competence in his brain this summer because he is such a good defender. I mean,
he's athletic enough in a straight line too, and he has the size. Like my struggle with him, and I'm going to keep ranting about it like I did all year. You can't be that strong defensively from the waist down and be able to guard people with your hips the way that he does and be able to like bully guys that are bigger than him off the ball and also like be shy about going up. And he's been given paths to the rim every season that we've seen. He's still young, still only he's 20. Like it's early and we should probably just like wait. But the confidence thing scares me because I see it on one side and then I see him avoid it on the other.
Yeah, and I hear people say, well, he's robotic he's a robotic offensive player, and I think that's a valid criticism. But like Kyle Anderson is also a robotic offensive player, and he's just good enough to make it work. Like I'm not saying he's this fantastic offensive player, but Dyson just needs to get to a point where he's good enough to make it work.
Yeah, he may need some different coaching.
We will leave that there.
All right. Last guy on the list, another 4-year college player, Tristan Da Silva from Colorado, 6'8", guy who shot the 3 ball really well in college, 40% on about 5 attempts per game last year. I mean, really just shot it well his last 3 years of college, also 23 years old. How do you guys feel about adding another, wing who can play multiple positions, shot the ball well in college at 21?
Yeah, they're going to need to.
Go ahead.
So. Yeah, they're going to need to replace Najee. Look, they're staring down the barrel of losing 2 wings this summer, right? If Brandon's out going for a guard or a big, that's 1 wing down. Najee's got going because of the price. That's 2 wings down. Having wings has been a strength of this team for the last few years. With Brandon missing times, guys are able to step into the lineup. With Zion missing time, guys are able to step into the lineup. Having different, like-sized dudes that keep throwing bodies at guys like Luka or Ant or whoever, these perimeter guys are. It's been a strength of this team. I don't think Tristan Da Silva is going to come in and become this like Najee-esque, nasty defender type player, but like that 6'8" guys that can shoot, like that's the sell. Like you don't really need to sell it beyond that. He'll be asked to come in and play a role, which will be exactly doing that: guard multiple positions, hit your open shots, and be generally big. And again, like at 21, if like my upside guys are not there, like to be clear, like we talked about Edey, Kolek Ware is like the other upside guy that I see like mocked in like the 20s, where I'm just like, and I understand there's like intel that people are turned off by, which we can get into the merits of that or not, but like there'll be upside guys that I'm kind of watching for at 21. If all those guys are gone, Bub and all that, yeah, getting the guy that's technically going to be plug and play. I'm okay with it in this draft. I don't think, I don't think it's a guarantee he'll just be able to slide right in. I think there's a level of like, oh, can he be Jaime Jaquez? And I think that's not a route that you want to go down, because just draft picks don't typically pan out that way. But if you can simplify the role for this guy, be big, shoot threes, that can be a foundation for something.
He feels like this feels kind of like the Cam Johnson pick again, that like years ago we were like, why are you doing this? He's older. He's only going to project to do a couple of things well. We don't really think there's this crazy high ceiling. Like, why would you pick this guy? And it was because like, hey, he's good at basketball. That's kind of, it's the same thing that Shamit just said. Like, this is one of those things where like we're on the same upside guys. I'm a Ware guy. I'm a Bub Carrington guy. Da Silva falls more into I'm a Deron Holmes fan, but from this perspective of like, I know what I'm going to get and I feel really confident about what it's going to be. And it's a high floor that it's going to pan out, because there are going to be some dudes right after this that could completely flame out of the league. Like there are some guys that I just passionately do not believe in that are like coming up in the next pile of names after this. So this is just like a Pelicans style player. It's a big wing who can shoot, that can guard a couple of positions, that does a lot of things well.
Yep.
Who are you, Shamit? Who are your, I guess, high upside guys who could potentially be there at 21? Like who is on that list? When does that list end?
Yeah, good question. I think we've talked about 3 of them in Edey, Bub, and Ware. To a lesser extent, Collier, who I don't think is actually going to be there at 21. Oddly enough, like there's a guy that's being mocked in the second round. I've seen some mock drafts like have him kind of undrafted. Is Jonathan Mogbo. Like I really like the guy. I think look, I'm betting on this extremely rare combination of having a high proliferation of dunks while being a guy that has a lot of assists. That is a very rare combo in like a 6'7", 6. I mean, he measured in a little over 6'6" barefoot, but probably like 6'7", 6'8". He has like a plus 7.5 wingspan. Just insane length. I think this guy is, I think I saw on Twitter someone describe him as Gen Z Manimal, Gen Z Kenneth Faried. And if you were to give Kenneth Faried legitimate decision-making capabilities, like that's what this guy is. So like I wouldn't mind swinging for him at 21, because I think A, he's already a good basketball player. B, he's got a crazy motor and tools that just like, look, he's a little bit of an odd fit if he doesn't have a jumper. But I don't care. Like I just think this guy would be electric to watch on a night in, night out basis. That guy's a fun one. If like we're talking like, like more guys mocked in the first, I'm curious to see if one of these Ignite wings ends up falling. So like, Buzelis is ranked in the top 10. For most mocks, I know a lot of like, like I think like analytically, like there's a lot of teams that are just like, I don't know, like if it's all the way there. Tyler Smith is interesting, just being that size and being able to shoot the ball. I think like again, having skill at size is something that I'm generally drawn to. And I would say like I think that's kind of like where that list starts to end. I am not a Messi guy. I don't think he is someone that'll pan out, at least on his first contract.
It's gonna take too long.
Yeah, like people view him as an upside guy. I would rather take Adam Bona, who is a 4-year player, tremendous motor, does a lot of the same stuff. Is probably like more ready to do whatever you need him to do as a play finisher. I'm trying to think if there was like any other guards that I could really. Oh, you know what? I like Jared McCain. I like McCain. Again, I'll bet on I'll bet on guys that can shoot. Shooting is a premium. If guys already shown that they can have it in this draft, yeah, I'll bet on that.
I'm not as sold that Messi. I don't know. I mean, everyone keeps saying Messi's this project, and I watched that game that Baylor played against Duke, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like there's a chance that he could be ready sooner than people think.
Well, what's his? I just think the like teams are going to they're going to look at Dallas specifically, and they're going to make a lot of the same mistakes that teams made when looking at the Warriors and not figuring out that the Warriors had Steph Curry, who makes things possible that are not possible typically. And I think a lot of teams are going to look at Dallas and they're going to be like, oh, well, let's go get this bouncy, like lob threat. And I just think like,
but that's not what he is real. I mean, he's different.
He's a little different. I just, I think offensively, he has no clue what he's doing. That's my opinion. And I think defensively, there's more promise there. There's more promise there. I think he's more ready defensively than he is offensively. But I think it's like one thing that intrigues me is like he should be a monster rebounder given his profile and everything, and he's just an okay rebounder. So it's just like, man, like what is the real upside there? Because like, what do you see, Christian? Like what is like the absolute ceiling that you see? Because I see Clint Capella as the absolute ceiling. And what made Clint really work is he's been one of the three best rebounders in the league for a very long time, especially on the offensive glass.
Yeah, and I mean, just elite lob finisher too. Like a lot of value as a lob finisher on the offensive end, and a lot of that is tied to having a guard who can set you up with those lobs. To your point earlier, and I mean, Pelicans, CJ McCollum has many strengths. I'll just tell you after watching the season, throwing lobs is not one of them. So yeah, I mean,
who led the team in lobs thrown this year? Would you say it was Najee?
It might be Najee. Najee is the lob king. I started calling him lob king by like January. So
I'm curious. Yeah, it may have been Najee.
It might have been Najee, and that's not good. Like that's not a good place to be because there were a lot of people with the ball in their hand way more often than Najee. And let me tell you, I could make a low light reel of the number of times that Zion went back door and somebody didn't see him or didn't get it to him.
It's just so nice. Like if you are lucky enough to get a guy like Luka or Shea, just a huge lead ball handler. I mean, anybody fits next to them. You could just, like the Pelicans are building around Zion, and it feels like there's such specific types of players you have to try to get next to him because he's so unique. And it's just easy team building when you've got a Shea or a Luka.
I'm going to counter with what I think Shamit would say. I think it's also important to acknowledge who else was being built around next to Zion that caused a lot of limitations. I think we have seen Zion succeed with every single formation of this, good, bad, indifferent. He does have like unlockable things. We finally saw this year, like defensively and like being able to affect the game in ways when he doesn't have the ball. Like we started seeing that stuff this year. Yeah, I think somebody could take a swing on Messi. Like it really depends. I don't think a ton of people have have enough of like a horizon to be like, yeah, I'm going to take this pick right now and know that like it might take 4 or 5 years. And I do feel like he's that far away because for the defensive promise, I think he's a psycho athlete. That's the cool part is he's a psycho athlete. And there are not a lot of dudes that are that big and springy and strong. And he is those things. And we talked about this on the last one. The thing that jumps out is there's like 10 times where he takes the ball at the 3-point line and he dribbles and spins and finishes at the rim. and that's crazy because he's barely played basketball. So it's just a long horizon project where I keep doing the like with a lot of these guys. You compare him to somebody else, and you end up picking the other guy. I do that. I do that a ton with him.
Yeah, I think some team again is going to see what happened in the playoffs this year, and they'll probably take him 7 spots higher than he should probably go. But there's definitely teams out there. Like I think New York could bring him along in a way that could be a lot slower than necessary. Like Denver could look at him just because they haven't had like Zeke Najee's. I don't know if he's paying out for them in the way that they would have hoped. He gives them a different element, behind Jokic. That'd be interesting. Maybe it's Phoenix, where Phoenix is like, yeah, look, we got Nurk. Let's go get the more athletic guy. I don't know.
All right, last thing. Shamit, if you were starting a franchise from scratch, who would you take with the number 1 pick?
Victor Wembanyama. Oh, are you talking about like
that's all our answers.
You don't get to pick just anybody, and you don't get to pick guys you already know are good in
this class, huh?
Yes.
If I'm starting a franchise from scratch, Zach Edey. No, man, that's a tough one. I think you have to go with Sar because I'm not a believer in Risa Shea becoming any kind of creator. I think same thing with Reed. He's going to be excellent. I don't think he's going to be an on-ball guy. I could be talked into Ron Holland. I could be sold on Ron Holland. And the other guys that like, I'm not a Klingon guy at all. But like objectively, I can be talked into Klingon just because you theoretically have a defensive system built in day one and won't have to worry about it for 8 years. Like that. If you're starting a franchise, that would be pretty valuable.
No Topic.
Yeah, if he had, it's unfortunate that he ended up getting hurt.
I know his shot needs
now.
work.
Yeah, I'm not all the way there on Topic. I like him. I don't know if I like him to start a franchise around.
I feel like I answered this same question, Sar, but Topic is my like de facto number 2. And if we're talking about promise and like what pays off the most and what could be the most for me, like we wondered a lot of things that we'll wonder about Topic, about Giddey, but Topic is more traditional guard, traditional playmaking, and just like it's a lot of craft. I know he got hurt, but there's just a lot. There's a lot of film of him doing wacky stuff that we've only seen a couple of European guys on ball do, where it's one touch skip passes across his body and things like that are on the money. And he can also finish with both hands. He's crafty, uses his body. I think he's 2 for me.
So
I get the Ron Holland thing.
Here's a philosophical question for you. Would you rather start a franchise with a bigger Ricky Rubio or with a Gobert?
You think he's bigger Ricky Rubio? I think he's better than Ricky Rubio.
If he can't shoot, then yeah, I think that's his absolute ceiling.
Yeah. I mean, what he's an 80% free throw shooter, but the shot
so was Rubio.
Who's Rudy Gobert in this scenario?
Klingon.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah,
I would go. So sorry.
I would go the big guard. I would still go the big guard because if a guy can create at the level, like with the passing that he has, with that kind of polish, like if I'm going to bet on a thing to get better, I don't doubt the fact that psycho young professional European player can work on a shot and he will take it. And all the other stuff, like I just watched the way he uses his body and uses his dribble, and it's like he's a 28-year-old. And the passes are the same too. And it's like, I've learned my lesson with like Luka not going one, Joker going, not saying he's those people. He's not, but he has it. The same question persists. Like, is he athletic enough? Can he shoot well enough? And it's like, I'm just going to not doubt what I saw. That guy can
that's
really,
fair.
really, really pass and create.
Yeah, I think if you're a believer in him, that being that level of passer, then it's probably a no-brainer. I'm not all the way there on him, but I think I got to go watch a little more.
I personally love Klingon. I mean, I think like the most impressive thing to me is the way he fit into that whirling like UConn offensive machine and looked comfortable doing that. Like the guy can distribute, like he knows how to play for being a giant. Like he has IQ and can move the ball a little bit. I like Klingon a lot, assuming his body's going to hold up.
Yeah, that's the big one. And I think just with bigs in general, they have to be competent offensively, and they have to be able like there's a role for strict play finishers, but that's only if you have the tier 1 creator like Luka, right? Otherwise there's got to be a level of decision making that you're comfortable with, and I think that's where Lively pops and Gafford doesn't, right? Like Lively, the sell on him was that you give him the ball in a short roll, he can make a decision for you. And that was a sell on him coming out of Duke, and he's capable. He's shown, he's capable of doing that next to Luka, because teams are going to blitz Luka and they're going to try to figure out what he's capable of doing, and that is not Gafford's game, and that's like one of the reasons the minutes, the plus minuses are insane swings with the Lively minutes versus the Gafford minutes.
I feel like you just shoehorned the Gafford stuff in there really hard. You're just like, I just want to like talk about Gafford at the end. And I'm gonna.
He did that because I'm here.
I'm just saying, you brought up Klingon being able to pass, and I think that's like when you play with an elite level creator, and you're a hard rolling threat, you're going to end up with the ball and you have to make a decision with it. And you're absolutely right. Like that is a big sell on Klingon, is that he can make decisions with the ball in his hands. And I think that's just so important for a big. I just think that's incredibly important.
All right, guys. I enjoy doing this one with you every year, Shamit. I enjoy your draft takes. I'm excited to be doing this one again next summer when the Pelicans are going to be getting the #1 pick from the Lakers and adding Cooper Flagg to this operation.
I'm going to be the guy that's pitching like Amari Bailey or something.
Hey,
right,
look,
guys.
at least next year, there's like I'm watching just some of the guys I don't even know yet, and like little clips of them playing and hearing that this guy's like battling to be a top 10 pick, and I'm like, dear God, it's so much better. Oh my God, it's so much better. Anyway, we can get out of here now.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. Where can people find your work?
They can find me at intheknow.substack.com or on Twitter. That's where most of my stuff is.
Subscribe to the Subby. We appreciate you guys listening and talk to you again soon.